religious trust is publishing religious magazines and selling photos and idols. That will be your residential business.
Selling religious magazines and books.
Ayurvedic products also.
So let us sell these magazines first. So you should read. There is a very landmark case. Supreme Court Sai publication. In this case, Supreme Court gave a very landmark ruling. Says suppose an institution is publishing and selling religious books, selling goods, selling lockets. For some of them, for manufacturing it as VAT registration, excise registration. Supreme Court said that even if there is VAT registration, excise registration, those registrations are required for a particular economic activity. So they are businesses under the excise law, they are businesses under the VAT law, but under income tax law they are not businesses. Income tax is not related with the economic activity. So the excise registration is under the excise laws. So even if an organization is having dealership, VAT registration, income tax registration, it will not be treated to be engaged in any business activity as far as Income Tax Act is concerned. So primarily your cases will be covered under that Sai publication case. If you don't get the citation, you ask, I will send it to you, but it will be available, please.
Like the expenditure on the religious publishing, will that come in the 5% or if you are publishing religious books, daily candles?
Religious expenditures certainly will come under that 5%. So when we are talking, suppose I am talking about religious organization, so I am assuming that I am talking to a religious organization. If it is a charitable organization, I am assuming that it is to a charitable organization. Now independently you should apply that how you plan, whether those activities, you have two options. If you treat them as incidental business activity, then 5% will not apply, but you have to establish that they are related to your charitable activity, which may become difficult. But there are cases where dissemination of religious literature has been treated as charitable activity. Conducting a religious activity and dissemination of scriptural wisdom in many cases has been treated as a charitable activity. So you have to do your internal due diligence. Charitable purpose कर दिया. Business by and large we are through. There are some cases which say that business involving beneficiaries is not a business at all. It is a part of charitable activity. There are some charitable activity which are in the nature of business. For instance, microfinance, old age home for financially well-off people. It is a reality. A poor does not mean that you should be financially poor. Poor means you are deprived of something. A physically disabled person, he may not be poor, but he is deprived. So it is not necessary that a differently abled person should also be poor to become your beneficiary. Old age, even middle class and upper middle class people who don't have the security of their children, if they are supported with pay in an old age home, it would be treated as a charitable activity. So the poor does not necessarily mean poor. To become a beneficiary, it is not necessary that you should be financially poor. There are many cases where microfinance activity has also been held as charitable activity, provided a profit intent is not established. So if a microfinance activity, say, conducted at 10% of interest, at 10% of interest if it is conducted, then it is not a business activity at all. It is not an institutional business. A microfinance, either it is a non-charitable activity or a charitable activity. There is no question of incidental business activity. A old age home running for upper class people, either it is a charitable activity or a non-charitable activity. So sometimes we confuse some business time activity with incidental business activity. So either you have 12A, you don't have 12A. There is nothing called incidental business activity. So a microfinance institution, if it has 12A, then 11(4)A does not apply. The primary activity is charitable in nature. If it doesn't have 12A, then it is a business activity. It is a non-charitable activity. Same applies to medical institutions and educational institutions. There was a case in Supreme Court which it was argued that the educational institutions are charging very high fees. From fees they are meeting all expenditure and also making profit. Then where is service? The Supreme Court said that still it will be covered under the definition of charity. The larger intent is that what is wrong? Suppose a doctor goes to a village and treats people and also earns his livelihood. So if he is providing services where the services were not available. So because education and medical services are not available all over the country and through government and NGOs we cannot reach out to everybody, it makes sense that you should have a broader perspective regarding these kind of activities. So even if they are doing some profit, still they can sustain their charity status. Supreme Court even gave a percentage that 6 to 15% profit can be made by this kind of institutions. Then these are the kind of activities which are not necessarily business activity. The section 215 applies to business activity. So income from property held under a trust. Suppose this auditorium, it is integrally required by our institute for training. If the institute rents it out for 3 days in a month, then it is income from property. It is not an incidental business activity. But if the institute creates such an auditorium for renting out purposes, then it becomes a business activity. So assets which are required for advancement of your objectives, if you earn any income out of it, then they are income from property of trust. They need not be considered as business activity. So I have already discussed capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is permissible or not? We should write the entire amount of capital expenditure as application of fund. There is no need to compute depreciation. If you have not charged the entire amount of capital expenditure, then you may have two blocks of assets. One which are written off, two which were not charged once. So on those assets you can claim depreciation. Depreciation is permissible only on those assets which were not created out of income of the organization. So if it is created out of income, charged against income, then depreciation is not permissible. Otherwise depreciation is permissible. For all other organization, depreciation is permissible irrespective of the source. And depreciation will be permissible, to my understanding, on project assets also. So there you get the advantage you get a grant that doesn't go to your income and expenditure account. You apply the grant, you utilize it, you create those assets. Those assets were not charged against your income. You can claim depreciation on those assets. So that is the advantage you will get by not accounting the grant as a part of your income and expenditure account. If you account the grant as a part of your income and expenditure account, the purchase of asset is shown as application. If the grant is treated as a legal obligation, used as per the donor's conditions, then those assets will be eligible for depreciation. In the balance sheet for disclosure purposes also, you should distinguish between corpus assets and project assets. Obviously, corpus assets and project assets, unless you have created a asset fund, those assets which you have written off will come at token value. So from that you can identify the written off assets and assets with value. But corpus assets are the assets which belong to the organization. Project assets are the assets which belong to the donors which are under legal obligation. The organization only have a technical ownership. So it is the asset is registered in the name of the organization. For instance, when the bank gives you a loan, the money is in your bank account, but the money does not belong to you because it is bank's money. So the assets are, the title is a technical title, but for all practical purposes they are subject to a legal obligation. So you should distinguish legal obligation based assets and corpus assets in the balance sheet rather than doing a traditional bifurcation of asset which we normally do in a traditional conventional balance sheet. These are the first two cases are the educational institutions where they can do 6 to 15% profit, which I told earlier. Third is also a very interesting case. In this case, an organization, educational institution, had 50% income during the year, 50%. तो इनकम टैक्स वाले ने कहा है तो मजाक लगा रखा है, ये पीए इनामदार टीएम पाइप को भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट का 6 से 15% ऑल्सो यू हैव क्रॉस्ड. Punjab High Court said a charitable organization, if the income and expenditure account is showing 50% excess of income over expenditure, then it only implies that this money will be used in next 5 years and the organization will file Form 10. What is the issue? So this is a very landmark case where the Punjab High Court gave a totally different dimension. For a charitable organization, if it is having income, अगर 50% भी इनकम कर लिया तो only after 5 years the assessing officer will have a right to revisit this issue. The organization can always file Form 2 and accumulate that money. So there is no concept of income or loss, profit, because the income is not determined as per the act. So how will you know what is the income? Because the income and expenditure account is created on commercial principles. We are treating non-expenditure as expenditure. We are which are not charged against. So how will you determine what is the income? तो अगर 50% ज्यादा है तो आने वाले 5 साल में खर्च कर देगा. What is your issue? So this is a very important case, and this case you will have a lot of series of citations of other cases. So if you have this income related problem, this will help you. The entire gamut of income related issue, depreciation, if कोई issue है आपका, anything you would like to discuss? Yeah, madam.
Suppose the NGO has got some general fund, I mean the general donation, they have purchased those assets. So you mean to say that those also need to be written off in one particular year? We don't need to charge depreciation on that?
No, it is the prerogative of the NGO. When an NGO is, let me, if I have understood you correctly, one, the NGO when it purchases an asset, if the asset can be established that it is purchased as a part of advancement of its objective, then the NGO is entitled to write off that asset in the year of receipt irrespective of source. Suppose you have nil income in that year, you can write and you can set off those deficits in future year. I will give you one more example. Suppose you purchase asset out of loan, so there was no income, loan. So some officers say that repayment of loan will be treated as expenditure, not the purchase of asset. So which one will be treated as expenditure? The purchase of asset or repayment of loan? But the purchase of asset will be treated as expenditure. If you treat purchase of asset as expenditure, then repayment of loan should not be treated as application, but the interest amount can be treated as application. But there are one or two cases where the purchase of asset as well as repayment of loan has been allowed as application. So the moot point which I am trying to make is that asset irrespective of source, if it is purchased towards advancement of the objectives of the trust is entitled to claim the entire amount as application in the year of purchase.
Suppose if the trustees they put it in depreciation, so is it allowable or
Yes.
is it under compulsion to take?
No,
it?
there is no compulsion. Suppose you have not claimed that asset, then you are entitled to claim depreciation.
Sir, depreciation on project assets I could not get your point. Because project assets is actually utilization of the project.
Yes, but it is not created out of income. Suppose I create an asset out of corpus, like her example, or my past accumulated fund. So I am not creating it out of my current year income. So under normal circumstances, I should be taking depreciation. This is what we do. We purchase assets out of capital and over a period of time we write it against income. So project asset is one such. So in NGOs you will have assets which are created out of the current year's income. Assets created otherwise, whether corpus, project assets, general fund, accumulated fund, endowment fund, all those assets, there is no distinction, are eligible for depreciation. Because you can charge asset once against the income. You cannot charge. Up to Finance Act 2014, you are allowed to charge the asset twice against the income. You create from current year income, so the loss also in the external statement also it has been written. Then you cannot be allowed to charge the asset twice against the income. There is no reason why you cannot charge once. Otherwise, how will you replace those assets, those project assets or capital assets? Suppose I create an asset from my capital. So how will I replace this asset? Those assets if depreciation is not claimed. So under those principles, there is no reason why you cannot claim depreciation of project assets.
So what I was making the point is, suppose a project has been given for analysis of blood samples throughout the hilly regions of India. For that they had purchased crores of rupees of blood collecting samples, machines. I had put it all into utilization, not as asset.
No, because you were following a accounting principle where you are treating the receipt as income, therefore the purchase of asset was treated as utilization. Had you been following an accounting policy where restricted grant were not a part of your income, because when you receive some money to purchase an asset, that money is not unconditionally available to you. When the money is not unconditionally available to you, it is not a part of your income. What we say, anything which during a period of 12 months, suppose one of the definition of income is that the increase in your asset between two periods, the unconditional increase of asset minus liability. So when those assets are a part of your liability, when those assets are a part of your legal obligation, they cannot form a part of your net worth. So because they cannot form a part of your net worth, It was not necessary for you to have treated it as income and application. So because you treated it as income, you have written it off as application. So therefore they have become a zero value asset. But ideally, that project balance should have been a part of your balance sheet. Opening project balance, received during the year, utilized during the year, closing balance.
So that's what I did actually.
Ah.
The closing balance is reflected in a particular bank account. That also was written over there. But in the utilization part, the assets were also.
So when I am purchasing an asset out of a project fund, try to understand. The same example, when the donor says that out of 1 crore rupees, 10% I will give you. So for donor it is utilized, for me it is not utilized. So I will treat it the way I treat corpus assets. डोनर ने 1 करोड़ में 10 लाख रुपया दे दिया तो डोनर प्रोजेक्ट से मैंने निकाल लिया. So we have to maybe Suraj ji can take up that how accountically we can handle and we recreate that value in the asset so that you can create. Because under special purpose reporting to the donor you will have to show that those assets as utilized. जैसे डोनर 1 करोड़ में से 10 लाख रुपया आपको देता है ओवरहेड, तो डोनर को हम लोग 1 करोड़ खर्चा दिखा देते हैं, मगर 10 लाख हम लोग दूसरे अकाउंट में जाता है कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के तो पास है वो एसेट, वो ऑल द एसेट्स आर अनडेप्रिशिएटेड अवेलेबल विद द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. 1 2 they have never been charged against any income. The organization has a right to charge it against income once. Maybe the accounting part he will take care. Maybe otherwise you can bilaterally write to me or we can discuss.
Machines were sold also later on. Crores of rupees.
So then that they will go to your income and expenditure account.
This thing is happening with colleges also. They are getting lakhs and lakhs in buying your book grant. Those books are not disclosed anywhere.
They can take this advantage if they get cash money.
Yes.
So they can take that advantage. Because then you have to see there is a hairline difference between voluntary contribution and restricted grant. Sometimes these kind of books can be treated as voluntary contribution under the income tax department. Because a thumb rule definition is that if somebody gives you money to fulfill your desire, your objective, it is voluntary contribution. If you take money to fulfill the desire of the somebody else, then it is restricted grant. This is a thumb rule distinction, but the contract will determine whether it is restricted grant or voluntary contribution. If it is a restricted grant, then you can take this kind of advantages. Yes.
School fees में जब building fund include होता है,
जी.
then how do you treat that building?
यानी देखिए, certain receipts which come with an overriding title. जब मैं पैसा रिसीव करता हूँ, एक इनवॉइस में लिखा हुआ है कि 1000 रुपया 1 rupee towards Ganesha, 1 rupee towards Gausala. So there is an overriding title. So when you say that it is towards building fund, so there is an overriding title in that fund. So वो पैसा उस फंड में immediately चला जाएगा रिसीट में.
Direct balance sheet में
ना तो फिर क्या होता है कि depending on the nature of receipt, we will have a separate discussion on that. So whenever you receive a money where there is a distinct, a portion of it is for this particular purpose, a portion is this one, so then there is an overriding title at the time of receipt. So then at the time of receipt they will fall at 3 different places. Then we will see in accounting whether they will go to income or not. But at the time of transaction itself they cannot be treated as one receipt. They will be treated as 2-3 receipt. फिर वो advance against building whether should be treated as income or a capital receipt is an independent issue. But you are receiving 2 different receipts through one receipt.
But the building fund amount, where will it go? Will it go to balance sheet or will it be treated as income?
No. Now the issue is that capitation fee is legally not permissible for schools to take. So it is a legal issue that under what? Normally it should be a give and take transaction. So towards building uses if you are charging, then it goes to the fees element. If it is a kind of a long-term donation, there are cases where the courts have held that the students can simultaneously contribute voluntarily to the building. So depending on the nature of the transaction, you have to account it. But if you say that it is capitation fee, then the law of the land does not allow capitation fee. Accumulation issue में सब डिस्कस कर चुका हूँ. There are last 3 issue. नीचे से 3. इंटर चैरिटी डोनेशन. एक इंटर चैरिटी डोनेशन परमिसेबल है या नहीं? नो?
Same object.
The money can go ad infinitum. Any charitable registered 12-way organization can use the money itself or through another registered organization. Both will be treated on par with each other. There are cases where it has been said that the 100% of income was given to somebody else. Still, its 12-way could not be cancelled. इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट सिर्फ तो आप तो कुछ करता ही नहीं है, आप जितना पैसा है सब किसी और को दे दिया. तो वेयर इज दिस पर्पस? स्टिल इट वाज हेल्ड टू बी अ चैरिटेबल इंस्टीट्यूशन. सो इंटर चैरिटी डोनेशन इज परमिसिबल. बट नाउ सी एन एग्जांपल. एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैज एन इनकम ऑफ 5 करोड़ रुपए. वो खर्चा नहीं करता है, 5 साल तक रखता है. 5th ईयर में इट गिव्स टू अनदर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. दैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अगेन गिव्स फॉर 5 years. 5th year it gives to another organization. So to plug those kind of practices, inter-charity donation out of 11(2) funds is not permissible. जो पैसा को आपने 5 साल के लिए accumulate कर लिया, उसका inter-charity नहीं कर सकते. So except 11(2) accumulation, all other inter-charity is permissible. So except 11(2), Form 10 आपने अगर फाइल किया है, तो वो पैसा आपको खुद को अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा. यू कैन नॉट गिव इट अंडर इंटर चैरिटी. सो एक्सेप्ट 5 year accumulation, all other inter charity donation are permissible. So that is one thing we should be very careful. So whenever you are, in case of your client, if they have filed Form 10 and accumulated the income for next 5 years, be careful that that particular portion is not given to another charitable institution. Now from this year onward, the Act says that no delayed filing of inter-charity Form 10. तो रिटर्न के साथ आपको फाइल करना पड़ेगा. Otherwise there are cases that any time during the assessment you can file. If the AO detects that your income 85% is not utilized, immediately you can give a Form 10. But now this practice has been plugged. So be careful that 85% of your income is utilized, or you file Form 10 along with ITR 7. 15% deduction. I see some organizations income 1 crore, 15% accumulation 15 lakh पहले हटा दिया. Then 85 lakh say you spent. $90 lakh. So you are spending effectively 1 crore 5 lakh. Supreme Court has said in ALN Rao case that 15% or unspent balance, whichever is less. तो जो प्रैक्टिस है कि 15% ले लेते हैं, that is technically is not a correct practice. I keep on seeing people, they just take 15% at the beginning. So 15% or unspent balance of the, because you cannot accumulate more than what is actually available with you, because everything should be real on cash basis. That is the spirit of the act. So 15% or unspent balance, whichever is less can be accumulated. That is the correct way of computing, and it has been reaffirmed by Supreme Court.
Object of the accumulation can be changed.
Object of the accumulation, there are many cases where one, the object was not properly mentioned. Two, where the money was not applied specifically on that particular object. In both the cases, the ruling came in favor of the SSA. So it is more of a directory requirement. It is not that there is a requirement that an overall control should be maintained, that money is under the vigilance of the AO. It is not that there is a technical requirement.
So change resolution are required to submit before the AO.
Huh?
Change resolution.
Change regulation?
Resolution.
Then a object change resolution, it, as I said, that it is a subject matter of judicial precedence. We don't have a settled law in the country. So, suppose the object is diametrically changed. When you say that the object is that we will purchase a blood analyzing machine, but you are using for some other purposes,
Yes.
then